So it's been a while since I actually made a proper video, and it's also been a longer while since I've made a video based on Monster High.
Okay.
Hey! Hey! How y'all doing?
Ooh! Why I've got two versions of the same character here. Frankie is my favorite character. So I've been interested in Monster High almost 10 years. Although I actually did unknowingly had encounters with Monster High by visiting their website through a link from the Barbie.com website. Thanks, Barbara. I pretty much discovered it the moment it came out by a commercial on Disney Channel back in the day, and I remember thinking to myself, they seemed so cool. I will just wait until I'm a little bit older. I was 9 years old and I was still heavily interested in Barbie, and I was always on and off with Bratz. I did have a small phase with Polly Pocket, Littlest Pet Shops. Was there anything else? Disney princesses, Disney fairies. But otherwise, Monster High was the first time where I actually got to experience what it was like to be a proper doll collector. Monster High was so diverse in terms of its content and media. This only barely covers a quarter of the merchandise for a brand that lasted not even 7 years. Anyway, Barbie fashionistas.
Fashionista, are you? Are you a girly girl?
Older ones as well. Slapped on a name or just a number and that was it. Whereas Monster High, every single one of them had a distinctive character and traits, story to tell, and relationships. So my obsession in 2010 or 11 was actually Disney's Tangled. I was very obsessed with it. I loved Rapunzel from Barbie. I've always had long hair. So for my 10th birthday, we were able to go to Toys R Us. What I wanted to do was go to the Tangled section and see what I could find. And I ended up making eye contact with a whole entire shelf unit of Monster High dolls. And then I completely ignored it and I went and got a Tangled Rapunzel tower.
Rapunzel's magical tower, a cozy dinner with flame.
So fast forward a year later, I was very obsessed with this preteen girl demographic magazine called Total Girl. I collected a lot of them. I decided that I wanted to plaster them all over my bedroom wall on this side of the wall. And I quite literally ripped out almost every single page that I really liked and stuck them all over the wall. One of those pages also happened to include Monster High dolls from the Dead Tired series. And I remember staring at it and either I was really intrigued by Frankie and Draculaura, or those two were the only ones on there. And again, the same thing kind of happened. Like, I was intrigued by it, but I just dismissed it. It was a couple of months later, around Christmas time, 2012, and we all went to Toy World. So my sibling and I that were instructed to buy something for each other, we weren't entirely sure what to get. So we kind of like slyly asked, like, hey.
It was at this moment that she knew. She f***ed up.
And it took me a little while to figure out what I wanted, but I remember this huge, massive table in front of the double doors, and it was just filled with a bunch of Monster High, older Bratz fashion packs and things like that. There was the Sweet 1600 car, and I just remember I was ogling it. Like, okay. I wasn't sure where to start. I can get the Monster High makeup kit.
Guess it started with MH.
Just a cheap quality one. I think I threw it out not too long afterwards. It kept on splitting. It wasn't that great. I think I even had a reaction to it. And the thing that really triggered me to actually wanting to get something at that time, otherwise I probably never would have bothered. Well, before that, maybe a week or two, staying at my uncle and auntie's in a lounge room, I was on my mom's phone and I was searching up videos on the Bratz Rock Angels PlayStation 2.
Is it Halloween already? What are you wearing?
We know you bought the venue to stop us from covering the... Class is my middle name. I thought it was Agnes. Yeah.
Bratz phase. And then I eventually came across a video. A mother and a child looking for... It was Ghouls Brew Frankie and Cleo that it ended up finding. And it was Frankie in particular, actually, that really caught my eye.
Alright, I get it!
You've never seen a doll that has green skin that looked like this. The first month into the new year of 2013.
Now I'm pretty sparked about 2013.
I was with my dad and my siblings. We went to Toy World again, and basically the structure, because half of the front of the store was Toy World, and the other half was like a mechanic gear stuff. Which was, you know, the intended reason why we went there. But 11-year-old Balls was bored. I came across all the Monster High dolls. One in particular that caught my eye, Sculptment Brolema's Frankie. I begged my dad to get her, so I've had her ever since. I also literally just remembered I ended up getting stuck into this huge maze of watching videos about Monster High. It was just a photo of the character, literally, and then it had like text of dialogue underneath. A bunch of videos that I came across about Frankie and Holt. This makes me feel awful because Frankie and Jackson happen to be my favorite characters. It's kind of mean as an 11 and 12-year-old. I didn't understand that Jackson and Holt were the same person, and they were of course written completely out of character. I thought Holt had Jackson's personality and Jackson was just a blank slate. There was a love rival between Holt, Frankie, and Jackson. It's ironic. And I can't remember how did I find out that Jackson and Holt were the same person?
After that, I had looked up the bios out of confusion. It all started to make sense. Duh.
Frankie was my first ever Monster High doll. Frankie was the character that I was drawn to from the very beginning, which I never even realized up until right now. So a few weeks afterward, the exact same toy world, I ended up getting the Cleo and Deuce original 2-pack, Sweet 1600 Draculaura, who I no longer have. And then I was not expecting to find this particular doll right afterwards. We ended up going straight to Target. They constantly moved the toy section. You would have like a row of shelves, like right at the door. If you go to the right behind that shelf, and you can literally see artwork on the back of the box poking out right through the shelving that I freaked. He's been through quite a bit. Recently, with the reboot happening and everything like that, everyone being divided or being in between, it really got me thinking, how do I feel about the reboot? I think a lot of people are being a little too harsh in terms of Generation 3 and could definitely have a lot more of a positive outlook, even if it's just the smaller details, especially considering the fact it hasn't even released officially. So much can change in production, the aftermath. Even if you end up not liking the live action movie, who's to say that the cartoon won't be better? Or the dolls, books. Anyway, Generation 3 was announced. I was excited, and I still am, and I really do hope them all the best, everybody who's passionate about this project. The first promotional image that came out for the movie, I actually really did like. With the exception of Draculaura's appearance a little bit. She looks a lot like what TikTok has been trying to create Draculaura to be in the last couple of years, which I believe is an e-girl. The trailers came out and everybody was in an uproar. From what I've seen, I am disappointed, only because for me it doesn't feel like it's living up to the hype of what we've been shown in the webisodes and the cartoons. It was very ecstatic, it was very bold, it was very dramatic. It's missing that grand appeal. Every single character in the original Monster High lineup literally has black in their color palette. They still have some sort of color that really, really pops. I also feel that it's important to note that the original concept of Monster High was that Garrett Sander and his brother actually found a group of teenagers entering to Hot Topic, and that was what the inspiration was at the time, because there's nothing that represented that gothic, edgy, and chic vibes and fashion trends, while also having this huge message about the fact that you can't judge a cover by its book. The whole entire purpose of the original Monster High was that they were so much more than what they were on the outside, and that's what made it special. And also the fact that I find it very peculiar how the cast and crew have made statements how this generation is going to focus less on the fashions, when in fact the fashion was the reason for this brand existing to begin with. It's also a fashion doll line. People are intrigued by the fashions, but people stay for the character and story. And I feel like taking away that element just kind of diminishes the purpose of Monster High. Ever since the first reboot, Frankie has been labeled as the smart one. That was never Frankie's characterization in the original Monster High, which is very interesting to me because that was always Goliath's trait. And just because Frankie is made out of a bunch of different people doesn't necessarily mean that Frank is going to be a smart person. Can we stop making Frankie smart? Frankie was smart in the original in terms of social skills, maybe. Frankie is a naive character. Has always been presented as one from the very beginning, and still seems to be presented as one even now to this day in the reboots. Frankie doesn't understand social cues and the unspoken dialogue spread out throughout society once you hit your preteen years, about how there's certain cliques that people go into, and the fact that there's also the division between monsters and humans, and even monsters upon other monsters. There's never that conversation, so Frankie does not understand that that's a thing. I think the fact that Frankie has been pushed to the side in both of the reboots to be made as the smart, naive one rather than the new ghoul at school who tries to bring everybody together, kind of a disservice towards the character. Frankie's character has actually made a enormous, huge sacrifice since the ending of Generation 1. Frankie has given up the traits of being the one who represents harmony by giving that to Draculaura in the first reboot. The third generation that we're currently in now, we've replaced Draculaura with Claudine now, and Claudine seemingly comes across as a naive person. So then again, that trait's been pushed down from Frankie once again to another character. And the fact that Draculaura is a sassy character who likes to do witchcrafting, and then Claudine having all of her attitude taken away. I feel like the most interesting step would have been to replace all these existing characters with new characters, but make them a different monster, give them different names. Maybe Generation 3 Frankie could have been Frankie's younger sibling. And you can even have the original cast making appearances every now and again. I do wish them all the best with this generation of Monster High. There's no point in sending malice to anybody. There's no point in sending hate to anybody. And if you're one of those people who has been sending hate to any of the actors, that's really disappointing. The whole point of the original was being yourself, be unique, be a monster, be freaky fabulous. Why couldn't we continue with that message with new characters? But hey, what do I know? I'm just a person on the internet. The whole point of Deuce and Cleo was they were this power couple that in every other cartoon media would literally be portrayed as the bully couple who goes after everybody else. But they're not like that. Yeah, Cleo had her hiccups at the beginning, but she reformed herself. And we also see to why she's the reason like that. If we went with the idea that every single character in the live action and the newer cartoon are new characters, they're completely different. We have the old characters coming in every now and again, and we even get like subtle mentions and maybe even cameos of characters from Ever After High, establishing that the idea of the cancelled Ever After High and Monster High movie actually ended up happening. Maybe that could even potentially open a door up for Ever After High to come back. There's already an established lore. Every character, when you meet them, are mysterious and compelling. They have some sort of story to tell and you don't quite figure out what it is. Do half of you even know that Deuce is actually half normie as well? Imagine where that could have gone. I don't know if I really want much of a repeat. Like, establish more on what you've already created. Don't just backtrack and retell the exact same story. I do miss the accents. I think I rambled long enough. So I'm curious. What is your opinion on the Monster High reboot? Is there anything that you kind of wished that could or couldn't have been? Let's keep it civil. Anyway, have a great night or day wherever you are, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.